to understand all of this communication, you need to understand a very important concept that is called as your OSI layer. What is OSI? OSI is Open System Interconnect. Okay, this is actually how, like, this does not exist, but it exists. This is a logical layer how everything has been put in place for the communication to take place. In that, I say this logical because most of the layers are not present in reality except the physical layer. So that is why I said it exists, but it does not exist, right? So see, giving an example, Indian, he knows Hindi, Chinese, she knows Chinese. They still cannot communicate because they don't know a common language, right? So there are different types of devices. Types of devices means there are different types of like, let's say one mobile device is from Lenovo, some other mobile device is from maybe Apple. Then there are routers that are from various companies, right? So if everybody is having their own set of languages, commands and stuff, how would they communicate with each other in a single open language, right? So for that, there is a guideline that needs to be followed for proper communication. That is nothing but it is a open system interconnect. So OSI is not a physical model, but it is a guidelines that needs to be followed by all the application developers. Now this was created by ISO, that is your International Standardization Organization. And before this, like I did mention, Apple and IBM were not able to communicate. So Apple was able to communicate with Apple and IBM was able to communicate with IBM, but there was no interconnection, right? So that was the need. So to understand OSI, you need to understand these 7 layers. And on like, this is how things used to work earlier, but now they have been simplified a little bit. They call it as a TCP IP model, and a couple of layers have been mixed to become the newer model, that is a TCP IP model. So but leave about the newer model, we'll talk about the one from where everything started. So there are 7 layers as mentioned in the OSI model. The first one is layer 1, that is physical devices. So this is where all your devices are put in place. That means your router, your computer, phone, whatever. So anything that is present physically, any device, basically it is going to be your end devices or your connectors. So whether that is a Wi-Fi adapter or sensor, similarly a wire, fiber optic cable or copper cable or whatever kind of cable, and then that all of them will come under physical. So since it is directly to you or accessible physically, it is called as the hardware layer. Most of the functional part is here, like if there are any damages, you can see like hardware related damage, it would be in the physical layer. Now there is one another layer that is called as your data link layer. So that is where it works very closely with your physical layer. In the newer model, physical and data link has been merged. So in the data link, basically, let's say you want to communicate. So let's say I want to send a message. So what my machine would do, my machine would translate some data into 0 and 1s, right? It would add some information like where is this information coming from, where does it want to go. So in the packet tracer I just showed you that if I clicked on a packet, it said source IP, destination IP. These are called as packet headers. All such information will be added in your data link layer. And then uh, there is something called as a network layer. So in network layer, basically you will have all the communication that is going to take place. So let's say your switches, routers, hub, all of these generally operate are or are present under layer 3. Now I said physical layer, they are physically present. So that is, we are only talking about the device, but the functioning of them is on layer 3. That means they are going to use certain protocols, certain ways. Like let's say I have a car, but where do I drive the car? I drive the car on the road. So having the car is physical layer. Driving the car is network layer, something like that, right? So you are having the router that is being on your physical layer, but you are using that router to send and receive packets. That is via your network layer. Okay. And then there is something called as a transport layer. So the packets are sent. So there is a communication path or a medium. So you saw about the designs, right? Whether it is a ring topology, where mesh topology, star topology, or any other, that is going to be under your transport layer, right? And then once you're connected to a particular end device and then getting and receiving back some responses, that particular term is called as a session. So you can say this as session layer. So that means two devices when are connected and they do not want to, or there is kind of a connection ID that is given, that is called as your session or session ID. Now, once this data has been sent and received, a connection has been established, the data needs to be presented, because a lot of times what happens, there is an encryption and decryption. Let's say I am sending certain information. This information needs to be protected. So what I did, I added some encryption in the data link layer. I sent it via the transport layer. Now, since the connection was established to the right connection, so I want to unencrypt my data and I want to send it in a user readable format. That would be done in the layer 6, that is your presentation layer. So it says here as software layer. Now let's say once again, so on my physical device I want to send some data. So what happens is the data got converted into zeros and ones. Now since my router is connected to the internet, it was able to send some information, whether in whatever topology, via the transport layer. Now the transport layer found out that my destination is maybe IP address X. It was connected to that, a session was established. So now it wants to send the information or to the end system. The end system has received zeros and ones. So now it wants to convert that back into user readable format, because let's say you're sending message to your friend on WhatsApp and all they are receiving is zeros and ones. So that does not make any sense, right? So presentation layer would convert that into user readable format. And then finally there is this application layer. So this is your GUI, where you will be actually seeing the message or the communication taking place. So all of these layers work with each other. Any data that has to be sent will be sent in this order. So it will go from layer 1 to layer 7, and then from layer 7 to layer 1. So to and fro communication is required between all of these layers for it to function. So it's not very hard to remember how this would, go.